According to the DWP, the average person in the UK now spends nearly 20 years in retirement. That's not an ending to your particular story, that's an entirely new chapter altogether. But what you do in the 5 years before you retire is going to determine if these years are likely to bring financial freedom or just financial frustration. Now that's why this time before retirement is often called the red zone or even the danger zone. And that's because this is where the magic can happen if you get it right, but if you mess it up, you could be looking at financial mayhem instead. So in this week's video, I'm going to show you why this 5-year period is quite possibly the most important of your working life. So if you are close to retirement, this isn't the time to just relax or even do a victory lap and lose your focus. This is where you need to shift into top gear and redesign your investments, your income, your spending, your priorities, of course, as well as your lifestyle. If you're new to this channel, a very, very warm welcome indeed. Hi, my name's Simon and I'm a chartered financial planner, and this is where we're going to try and make money make sense. So if you're 5 years away from your retirement, then congratulations. You're now standing in the most powerful phase of your employed and your financial life. And that's because this is where investment compounding finally starts to flex its financial muscles. It's actually the moment where all those boring monthly contributions, the automatic pension deductions, and the sensible savings decisions finally go into overdrive. But this time is also called the danger zone or the red zone. And that's where distractions, perhaps big ad hoc spending, and poor planning can derail your decades of hard work and sacrifice. Now, the magic is real, but only if you can manage to stay focused. And let's just take a look at this chart about Warren Buffett, who arguably is the world's most famous investor. Now, by the time he was 65, his net worth was around $3.5 billion. Now, as you can see, that's increased at age 93, and it was more like $136 billion. And that means that almost 90% of his wealth came after he turned 65 years old. Now, for what it's worth, he's now 95 years old, and his net worth is now closer to $160 billion. Now, to really grasp it, think of the old Indian and the Chinese proverb of the rice and the chessboard. Now, a wise man introduced the game of chess to the emperor, who was so delighted that he asked the wise man to name his own reward. So the wise man asked for a grain of rice to be put on the first square, 2 on the second, 4 on the third square, and so on and so forth. And that keeps doubling until all 64 squares were complete. Now, the emperor's treasurer calculated that this would be 18 quintillion grains of rice. I'm going to put the exact number on screen, and that's more rice than existed in the whole wide world. But if it had existed, it would have weighed 368 billion tons. Now, here's the key takeaway. In your final 5 working years, you're going to be sitting on the later squares of the chessboard. Your investments have had decades to build up, and now the growth on the growth is going to start to accelerate. Now, if your pension pot has doubled over the last decade or so, it can double again. But the difference is this time, the numbers are going to be much, much bigger. And that's why these last 5 years matter so much, and that they're so important to you. So you just need to let the compounding finish the job it started. And let me introduce you to Mark. He's 55 years old. He earns about £50,000 a year. He also works full time, but he plans to retire at the age of 60. Now, he's had a small inheritance as well, and now he's mortgage free, and that has actually saved him about £1,000 a month. Now, he's not obsessed with finance. He just wants enough to live comfortably, to travel a bit, and not to worry about the regular bills. Now, after years of saving, Mark's managed to build up a workplace pension value of about £250,000, but he's also got about £50,000 in an ISA. Now, his pension is invested in a global index fund. It's got low fees, it's got broad diversification, so it's nothing sexy or flashy, it's just solid. Now, the long-term return has averaged between 6% and 7% a year, and that is realistic, and it can be sustainable as well for the long term. Now, until recently, Mark was contributing 5% of his salary into a workplace pension, and his employer was also adding 3%. So as a total of 8% contributions combined. Now that wasn't bad, but it also wasn't using the full opportunities available to him either. Now the chances are Mark could have just plodded along until age 60 and his pension and his ISA could have been worth about £410,000. Now he's mortgage free. He also wants to invest that saving of £1,000 a month directly into his ISA. Now he can also increase his workplace pension contributions from 5% to 8%, and his employer's also going to match that increase in contributions, and they're going to go from 3% contribution to 6% contribution. So Mark's now going to have 14% of his salary now going into his pension, and that works out to be about £7,000 a year. So instead of upgrading his lifestyle now, he's decided to back himself all the way into retirement. Now, the end result is that instead of having a £410,000 pot at retirement, these changes are projected to give him closer to £520,000, and that's an improvement of over £110,000. Now, don't forget, if he decided to pay that £1,000 a month into his workplace pension instead of the ISA, he would also get the tax relief of £250 a month. So in that scenario, the final projected value of the pension and the ISA would actually be closer to £550,000. So if you're finding value in this video about why the 5 years before retirement are the most important, then hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But also don't forget the notification bell either, so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now here's a quick question. If, like Mark, you had an extra £110,000 in retirement to enjoy, what would you be able to do then that you can't do now? Let me know in the comments. Sorry to interrupt the video. Over the last year or so, many of you have reached out asking if we can help with solving some specific problems, particularly around your retirement plans. And I've spoken to a lot of you personally on Teams. The great news is that we can now scale this properly and efficiently, but we're going to need to cap this at just 90 new clients throughout 2026. And that's going to allow us to keep it personal, intimate, and obviously make the recommendations and give advice of the very highest quality. So please follow the link on the channel and we're going to be in touch with you very quickly. If you're not ready to take that step just yet, there's no problem at all. You can register an interest and join our newsletter. Now this magic only works if you understand how much money you're going to be working with. So that means you need to gather absolutely everything. Your workplace pensions, your current one, and any older ones or deferred ones from previous jobs, your personal pensions or your SIPs. You also need to know any periods when you might have been contracted out of SERPs or the state second pension as well. You need to know your ISAs, your savings accounts, as well as any investments, your rental income, any investment dividends, or even some side income streams from your side hustles. And don't forget about the state pension forecast either. So you need to know exactly what you're going to receive and, importantly, when. Then you need to add all this up, as this is going to be your actual retirement picture, not just the marketing bump or the marketing fluff that you read about on your pension statement. So once you've got your numbers, how much do you think you're going to need to live on? Here's a tip. Why don't you practice living on that level of income for a year? So if you think you need £2,000 a month net after tax, then try living on that now. Believe me, you'll quickly learn what's comfortable, what's tight, what's uncomfortable, and of course, what needs tweaking in the future. So if you're still working in your 50s, there's a good chance that your earnings are going to be higher than ever. Maybe the children have left home or they've become less dependent, and maybe you're finally mortgage free or close to it. So you need to get rid of those debts. You need to clear your credit cards, any car loans or finance, as well as the mortgage if you can. And once those are gone, you need to redirect any monthly savings straight into your pension or your ISA, and you'll be amazed about how fast your wealth curve then steepens once you move away from this drag of debt. Now, when markets do wobble, you're going to need a cash cushion or a cash buffer, ideally 3 to 5 years worth of expenses sitting safely in a bank account or a money market fund. That way, if there's a downturn right after you retire, you're not going to be forced to sell your investments at the worst possible time, and you can ride it out calmly whilst your portfolio has got time to recover. Now, money isn't going to mean much to you if you can't enjoy the financial freedom that comes with it. So you need to use these 5 years before retirement to get fitter, to get healthier, and to get stronger. You need to stay active, eat better, and maybe lose some of that midlife crisis weight. Now, money is just one side of retirement. Now, the other side, and arguably the more important one, is what you're going to do with the time that you've managed to buy yourself. You need to have something retire to and not just something to retire from. Now, the final 5 years are when many people take their eyes off the ball and then they trip up financially. So you need to stay engaged, you need to stay curious, and more importantly, you need to stay focused. Now, money isn't the only risk in retirement, of course. It's also political. So I've included a further 2 videos in this series about how the budget could hit your wallet, and another about why gifting your house to your children could actually end up costing you everything. So thank you for watching to the very end and for your time and for your patience. As always, I'm going to see you all again next week.